who's almost back. Lulu, Jennifer, Monica, Sam. Long time no see, Sam.
Long time no see.
Jennifer, everybody, so good to see you. We have almost 31 here. Sandra, Imelda. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you, Lorena. Did I miss anybody? Of course I did. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the counseling session of our morning. Up is our agenda, and look at this beautiful PowerPoint that Steve didn't make. And Giselle and I want to welcome you to our counseling session. It's so exciting. We want to introduce also Lupita Romero Gonzalez. She's helping us with the technology end of it, with messages and putting in breakout rooms. So we're all ready to go. So our agenda will be first starting with balancing our academic rigor and mental health. And once again, I want to say that part of this agenda, most of this agenda, not all of this agenda, was made up from the Puente Counselor Committee, who we'll be introducing later on, the Puente Counselor Committee of asking you what you needed in me. So I hope that this workshop addresses what you want from these workshops. If not, during the evaluation, you let us know. We're going to be promoting the SAT or the ACT or those entrance exams, or not to be or not to be kind of theme. University of California from the Poderoso team will be talking to us. And then Puente announcements in discussion about some things that are coming up, and Q&A and evaluation. So without any further ado, I want to go back to my junior high school counseling colleague, or everything colleague, Giselle Roberson, to announce our keynote speaker, our guest speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And it is, like Steve said, I'm Giselle Roberson. I am the teacher counselor coordinator for the middle school, junior high schools, part of the Puente brand, the secondary brand of Puente. And today I'm so honored to introduce to you Dr. Santa Linda Marrero. She's an executive coaching expert, consultant, speaker. She is an author of the book called The Diversity Calling, Building Community One Story at a Time. She did receive her doctorate from Rutgers University in counseling psychology. Over the past 25 years, she's worked in internal, external consultant and an array of environments of healthcare, government, academia, finance, and technology. And above all that, she's just such a wonderful mujer, beautiful corazón and spirit. And we're so honored to have her today to talk to you about some ways she's impacted, many, many students and many, many lives. So Dr. Marrero, take it away.
Thank you. Well, bienvenidos. I'm just going to start where I was going to go in a second, but to say I'm honored to be here, and I am here because there were people like you doing what you're doing, just like what we saw in the videos with Dr. Rendon. I was a first gen, underrepresented student. I'm first generation Puerto Riqueña, born in New Jersey. So I was Jersey-licious before a lot of them, trust me. But the point being that I get it. And then I was an EOP or EF student, and I then became a counselor for 7 years, because it is about giving back. It's about reaching. It's about the connection. It's about our stories. And I did that for 7 years, and I went and got my doctorate. And this is not a story about my trajectory, but it is to say, when we talk about validation, when we talk about raíces, when we talk about what we really are and who we really are, these stories are to behold. So if we can show my next slide, it's a beautiful picture, a very indigenous picture, and it speaks to our raíces meaning our roots, and I think it's important in story and music and everything we do to call on our ancestors and each other. And yes, they gave us inheritance of trauma, and they've also given us an inheritance of resiliency. So being vigilant of the stories we tell ourselves are important. And I love the spin about using heart, mind, and body to really give a message to who we are, and that energy that goes then to our students, right? So that's a very important place to be. And indeed, we are kindred souls. And I was a student, graduate high school. I'm going to date myself because other people might want to, but the point is in 1970. So, it's been 45 plus years and life has been good. And I hopefully, those who lit my way invariably lit their own way. And I continue to do that, not in counseling, but with coaching and leadership development and diversity and inclusion and equity work. So the roots continue to run deep. And nourishing ourselves is a very important place to begin. And I want to talk about it's an and both you and both students. And we were them, they are us. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to see the light of hope in others. And we've all come from adversity. If you're born in this country, in this world, we are, and we see it more and more. As Malcolm X would say, it's one struggle, many fronts. It is a socio-economic paradigm of, I think, of the most important challenges that we have. I started out as I wanted to be a Spanish teacher. That was everything. I studied here in Spain. It was a privilege for me in a time when that didn't even exist. And then I came back and I was working at ESL with the students, English as a second language with them. And they had so many problems that I'd go after school with them to their homes to help them navigate the social system, right? For food, for shelter, for all of that, that I finally said, I'm not going to teach. I think I need to go like into counseling and psychology to help people to go to the deeper places, right? So this, whatever the road we've taken and the path, some of you have stayed counseling and that's a wonderful space to be, but we all have like one struggle in many fronts that we can continue to branch out into. So I hope this beautiful indigenous picture, and I can't even read who it's from, but it's Frida, and I think that's Frida. Yeah, it is Frida. It was at the museum, and it really speaks to who we are. And so on that note, I'd like for us to just take a deep breath. I don't know about you, but my body's vibrating. I could feel even some of the heat from all the things that I heard and saw this morning. I joined in. And so can we just stop and go to the next slide and just everybody, just take a deep breath. Right? If you're with someone, don't breathe on them. That's not a healthy thing these days. But if you can first put on your oxygen mask first, you can't help anyone else if we don't take a look at here. And I've done the work you do. I continue to do it in different ways, and it takes its toll. So I want us to be purposeful, have mindful breathing. This is a technique I use whether I'm leaving a meeting or going into a meeting, just a 3-second breath, 3 times. Because it is research that breathing, just like with yoga and all of that stuff, if any of you've done it, oxygenates your brain and your muscles and your being. So can we just do that minute? Close your eyes. I'm not looking at you. If you want to look at me, that's on you. But close your eyes and would you please take a deep breath? Just really feel your bodies. Let's not ignore what's there and breathe in the life that you have. Hold it for 3 seconds and then just see your body release. Release, and then take in breath again. Breath is life. One more time. And then just a clearing and a cleansing. And again, one deep breath, please. And let it out. It's a way to center. It's a way, if you're an empathic, and most of us have such great empathy and big hearts, to allow our spirits to rekindle a minute so that we can be there for another. If we can go to the next slide, we have to put our oxygen masks on first. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself first. I remember in my younger years, it took a while, but every year I'd get bronchitis for like 3 weeks. I was out of work. The person who had so many days of non-taken vacation, right? I could just never take the time. I was in school full time. I was working full time. I'd salsa dance full time, all of that, but I couldn't take vacation time until I started to learn as I progressed in my career that, hey, you want 3 weeks of bronchitis and sick every year because this has become your pattern, or would you like to take some intermittent vacations? So it's a very critical message I'm sending you. You can't give what you don't have. And as you saw, our students have so many needs. We still have them. I know that. And so this is a concept, while it seems simple, it's a challenge. And when you're a giver and a helper, and that's the helping profession we've chosen, it's so easy to overlook yourself. So I really want to take us there. And if we can go to the next slide, I want to speak to the types of self-care. So let me give you something tangible. And these are tools that are hopefully are tangible for your students as well. There are 4 areas. There's physical, emotional, social, spiritual. So for the physical, sleeping, stretching, walking, physical release, we sit in chairs and do too much where we're not moving our bodies. The emotional, the stress management, the 3-second breathing, before and after anything that we need to do when we're emoting. I don't know about you, but I always tell people I'm Puerto Rican. What's your excuse? I'm always emoting, right? And that's the beauty of my culture and the challenge of our Latino culture. Forgiveness, compassion, kindness, social, right? Having boundaries. There have to be boundaries, healthy boundaries. And our boundaries are different than Euro-America. However, we do need them because we do get enmeshed. And I do go home with clients. I have them to my home, and I used to do that, but we need to also temper ourselves. Positive social media, communication, time together, asking for help. I don't know about you, but I learned to say, and this was even more recent, I got to tell you, the last couple of years, where I say, I haven't asked in my email. I would have never done some of that. And the other spiritual, time alone, meditative, I pray, I journal, whatever it is you do, a sacred space for yourself, palo sagrado, all of that. So what I'm going to ask you is in the chat, promise, just make one promise to yourself, to me, and for your students. Pick one physical thing, one emotional thing, one social thing, one spiritual thing that you're willing to commit to for at least over the next month. If you can just chat yourselves up, that would be wonderful. Remember, you can't give what you don't have, and you're going to need it. You're in for the long haul. And it's 24/7. It does work on your mind, as we saw in the video. It's not something we leave behind. It's who we are, right? So are you doing this? I want to hear boundaries, sleep. Oh, wow. Keep going. More boundaries, self-care. All of these are self-care, but pick one that you're really going to try to do. And I say not try, that you're going to do over the next 30 days. It takes that long to get them. It could be, I'm going to take a 20-minute walk in the middle of my day or whenever I can. That some days is a challenge. That's okay. I'm going to sit down, have lunch, and make sure I taste my food. Emotionally, I'm going to, I don't care if I do a 3-second breath, or I'm going to go do Bikram yoga for an hour and sweat it out. Whatever it is, pick some things. Take a lunch. Yeah, take a lunch and taste your lunch. Walking in the morning, weightlifting and food. Okay. And I hope in there you've heard, take some vacations, take some long weekends, things that really rejuvenate, rekindle you. Good for children, your children, it's good for your grandchildren, it's good for people around you, as well as all the students and people that you support. Okay, read Orange Theory. Hey, yes. Okay, let's keep going then. So you're getting the message. It's not students and you in academic rigor and mental health, it's and both. And so let's go there. And hopefully you can challenge your students to take some of this and incorporate it in their own lives, especially when we hear what the dynamics are that are happening to our students. You shared that this morning, and I'm going to share some data this morning about what our students are facing. But let's keep going. Let's go to the next slide. So the other thing is to take your pulse, and I don't mean this one, but emotionally, physically, and mentally, and say on a daily basis, what was this last week? Where am I now? There are days I'm in the red zone, the mouth is sort of droopy, and then I go, you don't want to be manic and always are in the blue, but I can smile most days. What I want to know is in the day or in the week, how much of this is going on? Because yeah, we ebb and flow, and more so now with all of this COVID and all of this isolation and all of this fear and all of the world war and everything going on around us. And so what I'm saying to you is make sure you're regulating. And that's a very important place. And we too, if we need help, like we would tell our students, no doubt, go seek help. And there's no shame, and I need a little help. I need to something to take the edge off, and I mean in a way that's productive for you. So if it's beyond what can happen with your self-care, then certainly counseling for yourself, doing those kinds of things is very, very important. Let's go on. So regulating yourself and your students, watching where they are on a more continuous basis. There's a new term. How many of you, I don't know if you can raise hands or put in the chat, I've heard the term languishing. How many of you know that that's a big term being thrown around right now? It's very hard not to hear people. So how many of you can you raise a hand? Can you say, you know what this term is? Well, here it is. It is a sociologist, Corey Keyes, who first coined the term languishing as the antithesis of flourishing. Stop. Languishing is apathy, a sense of restlessness or feeling unsettled, or an overall lack of interest in life or the things that typically bring you joy. It's not like full out depression, and you're not full out flourishing. You're somewhere in the middle, languishing. And it is poor mental health. I don't know about you all, but I'll disclose, I've had COVID. I had it before all the shots, and I got a real dose of what this is. The person who's driven, who does and bounces back, and all I can say to you is it happens. And it happens because I think that was part of the residual, but it also is happening more so, they're finding, because this whole phenomena, the psychological phenomena that the world is experiencing all at once with COVID and everything going on, has just exacerbated all of these other challenges that we've all had, right? And people of color have been hit more with languishing, and LGBT communities and our students are feeling it even more. And so it's that lack of, man, some days I get up, I'm ready to go. And other days when you see so much and you get tired, you say to yourself, why bother? The world's coming to an end. Coño, what am I going to do with this or that, right? So know that you get to languish too, and it's fine. And with your student, it's just, how much on that scale is it happening? And when is it time to say, this is not good mental health? There's something going on here that's more long lasting that I need to pay attention to. Any comments or questions on this? I'd love to see what you're thinking. I'd love to hear. I'm going to maybe look. Any thoughts on this notion of languishing?
My name is Cynthia. I work at Bret Hart in Hayward. I've never heard this term, but I'm like totally languishing. Like I'm okay. I still feel joy, show up for my family, but man, it's been a rough year.
Yeah.
It's been emotionally draining, the past few years, but being the transition back to school and our students' emotional needs have really taken a toll.
Yeah, at all. Absolutely. So no, acknowledge it. It's not just you. There's nothing wrong with that. This is part of the parcel of the psychological and spiritual assault that we felt politically as our people, as a people, and that we've certainly feeling with our extra share of the COVID and all of our compromises, right? Let's go to the next one. So hold that thought and know that you're there. So what is gratitude? This is a place where I find myself, it helps to really write about gratitude. When I first read about it, I mean, I'm grateful, I pray, I do all that, but really, and it's not acknowledging that everything's good and I'm all right and I shouldn't feel this way or what's wrong with me, I'm weak. No, it's acknowledging where I am and what my life is. And as you saw, students writing about it, right? Students drawing about it, all kinds of things to get it out. But a gratitude journal is a really good way to lift yourself out of that. Here's where I am. And let me remind myself what I'm grateful for. What if taken away from you today would truly, beyond languishing, would make you really turn inside out? I think of my grandchildren. I think of my son. I start thinking of my dog. I mean, whatever it is, it just, and research also tells us, if we go to the next slide, that when we journal and we do gratitude, and that's the definition. Let's go to the next slide. There are 5 scientifically proven benefits, and this is important for you to learn and know. If you already know, great. I hope you re-inspire yourself and your students to do this. I even bought myself a little gratitude journal that prompts me with some things, but you can do it anywhere. And you get better sleep. You do improve your health. You increase your happiness. I think even the blood pressure goes down. You become more resilient and you gain more peace of mind. The last thing I do anymore is start my day off or end my day watching the news. Now, I don't put my head in the sand, but but I don't start my day or end my day that way. I elevate my spirit, and I end in elevating my spirit, taking gratitude into consideration. And then I will look in the day and read and see and do all that we all do. Putting it out there for you. These sound like basic things, but back to basics is wonderful. I hope that you'll share this PowerPoint with everyone. It's for me to just give you, I'm not going to read all this to you, but here are simple ways to practice gratitude that come from the American Heart Association that you can help share not only with your families and yourselves, but and your students as well. And here's what I think is very important is your power and your centered. This is a very important quote to me. It says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And this was Viktor Frankl, who wrote The Meaning of Man, right? Who was a Jewish man who survived the Holocaust. And he was a physician, and how he just zoned in and went to his center to really be able to just navigate and survive what he was going, a very extreme environment. We have our extreme environment, you know, more extreme than I want. And so let me go to what this means and maybe some practicality for you of a tool. I want to be careful of time because this is so important, but it's a state of mind. A state of mind is important. This is all that, you know, when your mind betrays you, you're done. I had a brother who was bipolar, and I would watch him. When his mind betrayed him, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, who do you talk to most every day but yourself? And your mind is constantly going. If you're like me, I got monkey mind everywhere, right? Always going, always thinking. So it's important to take that piece of yourself, and that's where we center ourselves. And I truly find this a centering, an important place to be when everything else seems to be swirling. One is you have your reasonable mind, the rational mind, the strategic mind, and then you have your emotional mind. And it's important to keep the balance as much as you can. I find I have a big emotional mind and heart, and my rational mind sort of decreases. And I find that I have to dial one down to bring the other up to keep my balance. And that's an important place to go, especially if I'm stressed. Some of us go more rational and the reasonable mind and get very strategic when we are stressed, and dial down the emotional that can dial down empathy and can make us very self-serving. So it's important to use both, and it's and both, because in the middle, if we go to the next slide, is what we all know when we're at our best, and it's the wise mind. The wise mind that then can see clearly, think clearly, not catastrophize or not go over the edge, right? And if we go to the next, and this comes from headsmart.org, if you go to the next, this tells you what it is. I've already said that. One gives you drive, incentive. So the reasonable mind gives you that strategy to solve your problems and deal with stress. The emotional mind gives you the motivation to solve problems and deal with stress. You need them both. They're equally valuable. When a student comes in and they're all out of whack, or a family member, this is a good place to help them breathe, help them focus. Let's say, well, what is your reasonable side of yourself saying? What is your emotional mind saying? Let's see in wise mind what we can meld together without being in a knot. I hope this is a tool that you can use. Any feedback on, is this something you could see yourself using? I'd love to hear. Anybody?
I like it. Thank you. It provides another tool, a useful tool when kids come in and they're having a meltdown to use this. So thank you. I appreciate it.
I just had a meltdown the other day with my honey, and he talked me off the ledge, and literally, and he is very reasonable, and he just did this whole thing beautifully. Why I'm saying is, ask help. Sometimes you're so gone over the edge, you might need to have someone. So share this with family members. Share this with other people who can be there with you in their wise minds while I'm out of my mind, right? So I'm glad to hear that you'll use this. Terrific. And let's go to the next slide here. They intersect. Your wise mind is used in the final analysis. That's your center self. And breathing, trust me, breathing gets us back to that center, because our blood pressure goes up, we hyperventilate. When sometimes we're so rational that we dial down the emotion, we can be numbing, we can be freezing. I know these are all psychological terms, but this is what starts to happen to us, right? We disengage, we disassociate, and neither extreme is good. The idea is to always try to bring back to that homeostasis place in ourselves. Let's go to the next. Now, as trained psychologist, this stuff, it works then, now, and forever. I hope if you take nothing else for yourself today, it's this. From now on, tell yourself, it's so busy at work and in life right now, I can't afford not to take care of myself. If I could drop the mic, and I won't, it would be right here. Please post this somewhere. Put it on your mirror in the morning. High five yourself like all these people, motivational speakers are telling us to do. I really, really, really hope that you take this to heart. Can we go to a next slide real quick? Do we have time to go to the next slide? We have to. Okay.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, because we're going to talk about a little bit about anxiety. How much time do we have? Because some of this stuff I'll just breeze through so that people can have a chat time. How much?
Maybe like 3 more minutes.
That's it? And then we'll go into small group, right?
Right, yes, then we're going to small groups.
Okay, so we know anxiety, it's isolation, it's the space talk about current events, the disconnect from friends, bored, blah, 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 right? So let's go forward because this is where your students are, but some of this you already know because you were, Dr. Rendon asked you, what are your students struggling with? And here's what this research tells you, and you have these slides, I hope you'll have them all from the Healthy Mind Study. 41%, this is current, by the way, 41% of students screen positive for depression over the spring semester, 34% screen positive for anxiety. They are the highest levels observed by the study. However, this year's results are part of a steady increasing trend that students surveyed said that while the pandemic impacted their mental health, it isn't the root cause. So what is the root cause? University of Florida Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Associate Program Director of Student Health Psychiatry said loneliness is the #1 stressor to college students. I'm here in Southern California, but at Stanford, where I used to work, there's a student who you probably saw it on the news, Meyer, who was the captain of her soccer team, beautiful young woman, killed herself. And it's just, I hear it's more rampant. It's happening more than we even know. So that stressor of loneliness, so that connection, that one call, that extra hello, a little card sent, anything we can do is imperative. And let's go forward. I'm not going to just read all these statistics to you, but it validates what I think you know. Depression from years 6 through 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 17. We don't even know what all of the aftermath is for our little children. The years of anxiety and behavioral disorders, they're high. And notice the most vulnerable are between ages 12 and 17. And then and behavioral disorders are the smaller children who can't express even anxiety or depression yet. We go forward. Let's keep going forward. Don't worry, that's by age. The most common ways that COVID-19 has impacted students' lives, and this came from the University of Business Research: stress and anxiety is up, disappointment or sadness, loneliness and isolation, financial setback, relocation, and for some of us, many of us, it's dislocation, right? Under the bridge, intense. Not knowing where to go, in a shelter, it's all of that. It's been exacerbated. So let's go forward. We already know this, you all know this. The one important thing would be for yourself to discern, and for your students, stress versus burnout. Burnout comes and goes, the emotions are blunted, we have loss of motivation. They're important to know because you want to be able to address both. And stress, we can do stress, things to self-care, things to bring down the stress. Burnout is more insidious. Burnout really starts to extinguish the flame, the spirit, if you will. And that also takes some real attention. So within yourselves, learn to, on that scale, am I distressed? Am I burnout? What's going on here with your students also, so that they can talk about it, write about it, sing about it, anything that they need to get it out, and where you can just listen and help know where to channel them. And there are going to be some resources I'll share, and I'm sure you have some of your own, but I'll share them, of places and resources you can use. Okay, let's go to the next slide very quickly. So we're going to go to small groups. Hopefully at the end, will we have time to come back and just share the resources that I'm not going to read, but I'm hoping everybody's going to get this copy. so that they have all the links that I put out there, even some of the apps the students can use? So that's
Yes,
the
yes,
question.
this PowerPoint will be available after the conference, yes.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, because it's really about you and students, and we're going to put you into small groups. We want to hear how your students are doing regarding their mental health in the past 2 years, and share what your site or your area is doing to address these concerns. I think you've already shared where your students are, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, at least say, hey, my students are at an 8, or my students are at a 2. Okay, 5 minutes, and maybe share one thing that your site is doing or that you see yourself doing, and we're going to come back and I'll give you some resources. Thank you for
Yes.
coming back. And we only have maybe 3 minutes left, but in that time, to be able to debrief what, we don't have time for every group, but what I would ask is, of this group and the group you were in, just anyone, just 1 or 2 of you, is there something novel that you heard that a site is doing that you say this is worth sharing really for us to hear? We won't judge it, just bring it up, something so we can at least have a share. Oh, I'm
Nan-
happily surprised at how many schools have wellness centers. That's great. Yes, it is. Anyone else have something they heard that's being done even by an individual or collective that's really helpful? Anyone have something to share? Speak up, please.
I can share. So I am at a high school, Rancho San Juan High School. Our district has been huge on social emotional help and support for the last 4 or 5 years. We, except for our site, we're brand new. This is our 3rd year being open. All of our school sites have a wellness center, but aside from that, all of our school sites have like clinical social workers that are on site full time. We also have county mental behavioral health therapists. We have 2 of them, and then we also have a substance abuse counselor, and they're just like full to like the rim. We have a wait list, but they've just been such a great blessing for us.
Terrific, terrific. So thank you for that. And some are more fortunate than others and have the resources. And so I've made a list of a couple of resources. Oh, these are some things, the 5 T's of mental health and education in schools, what some schools are doing, studentsbehavioralblog.org. Here are some know the signs from the suicide prevention campaign. There's some recommendations, by the way, like in Alameda County, San Francisco State University. I did some race relations work there. They have a faculty staff guide on their website that you can take out and gives you ideas from their counseling center of what students, some of the signs, telltale signs are of real issues, things like that. You can go forward. There's also, I found on, and you can do your own research too. There's these Wellness Together Tools for Challenging Times. These are California resources that are available to you. There's also the commission, Every Young Heart, Mind, Schools as Centers of Wellness. And also there are a couple of apps, you know, the students use apps. If you go to the next page, and there's one, where to go, and you press it and it tells students where to go if they're in crisis. So there's also apps that I think you want to get yourself knowledgeable about. And all I did was research what's out there. Okay, gives you a start. So on this note, I've probably given you maybe some things you didn't want and more than I could give you with the time, but know that it came with corazón, con ganas, and with joy to say to you that I'd like to close this out with a poem. So you're invited, Danielle and Diego, did you come back? And I'm looking at the names, Nancy, Helen, Prado, Danny, oh my gosh, people who look like you, like me, Natalie, Lacey, Candace, Monica, all of you, Gisela, Thomas. I'm gonna ask you to close your eyes. Just close your eyes, relax. This is 1 minute for you. You're gonna be on Zoom with your eyes open, so take the moment, okay? And I wanna read you a poem. I did not write it. It is written by a man named Derek Walcott. You may have heard him. He has beautiful poetry. I wanna leave you with this in your heart. It's called Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Take a breath, open your eyes. This is what I wish for you. You give so much to others. I know this, and it brings life. It saves lives. We don't know what one thing we could have done or said that really has helped someone just in that moment recalibrate and want to stick it out. So thank you for your courageous leadership, and take care of yourselves so that when you put on your own oxygen mask first, you can help others at home, at work, and at play. And also that the academic rigor is important as is the balance of the mental health. So thank you for this privilege. Que Dios los bendiga, because I believe that. May we all know that I don't think there are any degrees of separation and good people. So thank you. Gracias.
No, thank you. De todo corazón, Dr. Marrero, thank you so much for giving us our second to breathe, right? When we came in, making sure we have gratitude, even holding us accountable, right? What are we going to do for ourselves? So thank you so much for that. And so now we're going to move on to the next session. The middle school and junior high counselors are going to be leaving this Zoom. So I just put that in the chat for all my middle school counselors. We're going to be going to another session, and then Mr. Gonzalez is going to move on. So thank you again, Dr. Marrero, for everything. And we definitely needed that. So thank you.
Thank you to Josefina and all those of you who are part of that team that just really have taken this. Here we are 40 years later, ay Dios mío, and many more to come in good ways. So
all right, here's to 100 more, ¿verdad?
Take care of yourselves. You got to have that staying power. Come on. We need each other, and they need us, and we need them. So you were the leaders you've been waiting for. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mena.
Adios. Adios.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
You too.
Okay. So junior high school counselors are leaving, and Lupita, if you could put up the PowerPoint. Hello, high school counselors. How are we all doing? Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're putting it up right now. Not too bad as far as time. At least a few minutes for lunch. What I really want to on the next session, I really want to make sure that we break up into our groups and hear from each other. We just want to make sure that the PowerPoint is up. Lupita's putting it up. Thank goodness for her technology expertise and that I'm not running this. So the next, once again, these sessions come from what we've heard from you in the Puente Counselor Committees. And one thing that we're going to talk about here, and I hope that I had Lupita practice listening to this session, this broadcast that's on there. But before we do that, we want to hear from Danny Lay from Pittsburgh. Her SAT testimonial, I forgot to put in there, testimony, her thing that happened with the SAT at her site that brought this all forward. And then other committees were bringing this up. So this is, I'll bring it up to Danny. Danny Lay from Pittsburgh.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So it all started with a discussion through an email thread, and it was created from the College and Career Center Advisor first, about most colleges going test optional or permanently eliminating the SAT, ACT requirement. And so the question coming from the College and Career Center Advisor was, what are we going to do about it at our site? And do we continue to have them take the SAT? Do we not have them take the SAT? So Avid was also on this discussion, and their stance was that they want their students to take the SAT no matter what, because it can be covered wherever they choose to go. The test can be a measure of their English, math, writing skills, and then help them with placement in college level courses, helping them remain competitive for grants, scholarships, and Avid said they don't want to close the door to students' opportunities. So interestingly, during this time that the discussion was going on email, the SAT came out with the news release that they were going digital in 2024. And so we looked at it as, okay, is the College Board now trying to stay in business because of this new strategy of going digital? Because of the fact that during the pandemic, right, students were not able to take the SATs, COVID came into our lives, and then colleges were left scrambling on how to revise their admission requirements. And then back in November of 2021, there was a lawsuit filed against the UCs, and they had to remove the SAT as their testing requirement. And I'm sure you guys have all gotten the latest emails from the CSU Counselor Update newsletter that they're having a meeting later on this month on the 22nd, 23rd to decide on what they're doing about their testing requirements for the SATs. So it was also discussed that, you know, the news article that we looked at, I think it was sent out by Steve or the College and Career Center advisor, about a small percentage, you know, of schools are going to require the SAT for fall of 2022. More than half of the colleges in our country will not require the SAT for fall of 2022. And then looking at the percentage of our seniors at Pittsburgh High School, not many of them apply to out-of-state or private schools. If they choose to attend those schools, they can be given the option. Pre-pandemic, that was part of our Puente requirement, right? To have them take the SAT, have them take the ACT. But as I said, that once that pandemic started, you see that the cancellation started, and then you saw the inequities our students had to face during that time. So times are changing. And so do we think about, is it time to change our practice too when we're advising students to take the SAT or ACT? So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. So the next thing we're going to do before we go out in our breakout rooms, before we go out into our breakout rooms and spend some time, with a good chunk of time, we want to listen to this 2-minute National Public Radio broadcast that talks about the SAT. I want you guys to please listen to it, because I want you to listen to it one more time in the breakout rooms and chat some strong lines. So Lupita, if you could click that, and hopefully everybody could hear it.
Show about big ideas from the people who make Planet Money. For a quick hit of insight into work, the economy, and everything else, click the play button
That's
below
good.
to listen to a...
It's just a commercial. Just go for it.
Sorry?
Hit that play button again. It's fine.
SAT,
Just a little.
college admissions test long defined by paper and pencil, will soon go all digital. Beginning in 2024, U.S. students will take the SAT entirely on computers or tablets. As NPR's Alyssa Nadworny reports, the move comes as more and more colleges are moving away from admissions exams.
In addition to going digital, the new SAT will shrink from 3 hours to 2, include shorter reading passages, and allow students to use a calculator on the math section. Testing will still take place at a test center or high school, but students can use their own devices, a tablet or laptop, or use their school's devices. Kirsten Amamatro, a junior at Potomac High School in Dumfries, Virginia, had a chance to take the pilot version of the digital exam last fall.
I feel like the paper SAT is kind of outdated.
She says her generation is just more comfortable with computers.
It was way easier and it was less stressful for me.
But Sanjay Mitchell, who works with high school students applying to college in Washington, D.C., is more skeptical.
Moving the SAT online is not going to eliminate equity issues. It's not going to address some of the challenges that colleges and students and folks in my field have been articulating has been the challenge with the SAT. It's just, to me, strikes up another way to remain relevant.
All this comes as standardized tests like the SAT and ACT are being questioned in the admissions process. The ACT for now remains mostly on paper, but the number of colleges dropping the test has accelerated in the pandemic as students missed in-school testing days and had trouble accessing strong internet at home. More than 1,800 US colleges will not require a test score in admissions for fall of 2022. The majority of those schools have extended that policy to include the fall of 2023. Colleges that have long been test optional say their incoming classes have not suffered because of it. But both Kirsten Amametro and Sanjay Mitchell told me the test will be hard to shake.
You talk about going to college, the things that pop up in your mind are essays, the SAT, and application fees. So until we kind of weed it out of our everyday conversations, until we decide that as a country, this test is not it, then it's still going to be a part.
Mitchell points out that most colleges in America, including community colleges, don't have selective admissions. And yet these tests are used to win scholarships. And in a handful of states, you have to take them to graduate. Alyssa Nadmorny, NPR News.
Thank goodness that we're not one of those states that have it for graduation purposes. So I'm gonna, I think we get through the breakout rooms together in 15 minutes and then come back. Our regional leaders know how to, thank you, Lupita, know what to do, I hope. And so once again, regional leaders, if you could have them listen to that one time, and because that's kind of wanted to be part of the basis of what we're talking about. And so Lupita, take them out to their regional rooms. So I hope that was enough time for you guys, for everybody to cover everything, all of the your colleagues. I hope it was a nice discussion, a little bit of way more academic discussion, and after we come back from lunch, we'll kind of do the same thing. So from each group, I'm going to start with NorCal, who your reporter is. One pro, one con, and what your recommendation is as far as the SAT. So that is Danny's group and Diego's group. One person from there.
Yes, I'm the reporter. The pro. Let me think about it. I think one pro was, if they are applying to a school that's out of state, and they require the math or science, that could be something good to take, especially if it's out of state. I guess the con, there's many cons.
One con, what?
One, oh buddy. Okay. I guess the big one is, why take it if it's not required? Because at some point, parents and families are going to ask us, as the maestros, maestras, they're going to ask us for our opinion. So I think we all need to kind of be on the same page in terms of that. What's our stance?
All right. And so what is the stance of NorCal? What is the recommendation?
Just the vibe of everyone. I think it's not to take it. It's not required. It adds on more to the students. And then just to kind of add on, we need to hear more from the universities. How's their process? We did discuss about how the UCs, when they receive those on the application, that it's either blanked out, they don't even get to see it, even if the student reports it. That's one example, but I think it would be great for us to see it. UC, CSU, private, whatever it is, see one example of their process and make it published. I don't know.
Thank you, NorCal. Who was that exactly? That was Alejandro? Was that Alejandro or Diego?
Come on, Steve, it's Diego.
Oh, geez. Diego, you were supposed to pick somebody else. That's okay. Okay, we'll go out to the rural, which I don't even know why I named it that. but like Lorena and Monica's group, one pro, one con in recommendation. Who is your reporter out there? Oh, Alejandro's, go ahead.
Does Alejandro want to speak?
Yes.
I'll go. So in our group, we discussed pro is to keep opportunities open for students if they're going to out of state or for scholarship purposes. I guess a con just this to it. Not all our students have access to take the test. It's too far for them to drive. We feel like it depends on the student. I wish we could say no, but we don't know enough from the universities, like Diego mentioned, like we don't know. So it depends on the student, what school they're attending, the major, and then kind of how they feel about testing. Like, are they good testers or not?
Thank you, Rural. I'm sorry, who is that was speaking? I couldn't tell.
Monica.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, now we're gonna go out to my old stomping grounds, the OC. That's Lacey and Edith's group. Who's the reporter?
That would be me, Veronica from Savannah.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I think all the reasons have been shared. I'll just repeat them so that you know we were doing our homework. So obviously the biggest con would be like the added stress on students if it's not something that's like mandated, like you must take the test. Obviously the pro would be what was mentioned about the colleges that might still required out of state, but also the potential scholarship from the Big Future. I know Edith's shared that one of her students got the $40,000 scholarship. So yeah, for them, our recommendation would be that the college list that the student is creating should be the driving force as to whether they take the SAT or not. And so that the option should be there. So we should inform them that the SAT is there, but they should take it if their colleges require that they should take it.
Excellent recommendation from the OC. Now we go to LA, home of the LA Dodgers and LA Rams. So who is your reporter there in LA?
This would be Norma from Lucerna. Hi, Steve.
Norma.
Hi, Norma.
So our pros, we also talked about scholarship merit as pros, and then various colleges that they might need to send their scores to. We also, a con was unnecessary stress for students. And the other question was, we feel that students need to figure out what colleges they're going to be attending earlier to see if they're required to take the SAT. And then just letting our students know that it's optional and that they need to really do the research for like private colleges. And then we're waiting for final word. Like we just had presentations yesterday for our freshmen for their classes for next year. And we always talk about college and SATs. And so I just said for your class, we're unsure. For this seniors, it was optional. So I'm letting them know, we're not sure what it's gonna be for you, but now this is what it is. And so that's what we agreed. It's just letting them know it's optional.
Thank you, LA. Last but not least, the Inland Empire. Who's the reporter out there in the Inland Empire?
It'll be me, Steve.
All right.
Okay, so the thing is what are the pros and the cons? I would say the pros are basically scholarships like the National Merit Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and also accelerated placement. Certain colleges do place you a little bit higher in math or in language arts if you achieve a certain score. And also I would say criteria, like for financial aid, some schools are, giving additional funding to those who achieve a certain score, like with the SAT. And then for cons, I would just say mental health, putting more pressure on the kids, affordability, how is our district, or how are we promoting this exam? Well, typically our district would pay for the 10th graders to take the PSAT their 10th grade year. We're still pushing it because we don't want to limit our kids' opportunities for receiving a scholarship or for gaining more financial aid. So what is your regional recommendation? I would say have it optional, but like I stated when we were meeting, the Cal States and the UCs need to be upfront with the criteria, because even though they're saying they're not using it for admissions, some schools actually are using it. Like I said, if you gain a certain score, you're going to get more financial aid. Some majors are also impacted majors are also using the scores to help kids get in. And if we say it's not optional for admissions, then we might be limiting our kids' chances of getting into that university. So there are a lot of benefits associated with it. So we would recommend, for our 11th graders, we can't enforce them to do anything, but we can strongly encourage or recommend that they take it their 11th grade year, as long as we identify the benefits that are associated with it.
Thank you, Inland Empire. So I don't want to take any more time from your now 25-minute lunch. So we're going to come back at 12 o'clock and hear from the University of California Poderoso team, and I will talk about what that is when we come back at noon. You really came up. I didn't think that these recommendations, you guys always lift up in my small mind what I think it should be, and your recommendations bring it to another level, bringing all our brains together. So great job. We'll see you all back at noon. Lupita, if you could put the next slide, and you'll never guess what time it is. It's the time for the big give, just in case you didn't know. So remember that as you go to lunch. See you back at noon. Okay, we're gonna get started, everybody. Thank you for those that are back for lunch already or joining us anew. So I think we had a great morning. And once again, we want to encourage you to give to the big give. We're doing so well, I think, so far from what we've seen. But remember, if anybody, what we give from 9 p.m. Last night to 9 p.m. tonight, it's doubled. So we're doing really well. And the next slide. Thank you, Lupita. The next slide has to do with I know it might be a little early to ask this, but we want to know what you're doing as far as next year goes. I don't know, Lupita, if you have that in the chat, that link too, just in case they can't take it. Lupita will put it in the chat also. So without further ado, so team status and the big give. And we go forward to our Poderoso team, which is a relationship that we have with UC Berkeley. The cat's out of the bag now, that we're serving all seniors in Northern California and 6 specific Southern California schools too. A relationship with the seniors and support that UC Berkeley is giving us. And this is our team, Alberto Davalos, Dean, I think Dean is here yet. Yay, Dean, from NAVCAV, and Marissa Chavez. And they're going to take this next part of it. And we're going to start off with Alberto Davalos, who was the first person that joined us on the Poderoso team. I didn't make up the name, but it's has to do something with Cal Bear, and Bear could do it, so I don't know, but it seems to fit. So without further ado, Alberto Davalos from.
All right, thank you. So happy to be here. Again, my name is Alberto Davalos. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm an assistant director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at UC Berkeley. I'm the territory manager for San Diego County, which means I oversee all of the applications for both freshmen and transfers from San Diego. And then, as Steve mentioned, I was a part of the Poderoso team, and still am, with Puente and school sites across California. So I'm going to leave this up for a little bit so you can copy down my email address. Although you may not be an educator in San Diego County, I'm so happy to be a resource for you for anything UC Berkeley, UC related. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will either answer your question or I can point you to your specific territory manager who's in charge of your school site to answer your questions. So for this first part of the of this presentation, I'm going to be going over how UC Berkeley reads applications and how we evaluate everything when we're doing our application review for our freshman applicants. So it is a holistic review, which means that we're looking at everything all together. There's no point system where 40% of the application decision is based off of extracurriculars and 60% is based off of academics and test scores. It's really just all together seen holistically. So I'm going to be going through a case study of an applicant just to show you what we see when we're reading applications starting in mid-November all the way through just a couple weeks ago. Actually, we're just finishing up a little bit right now. So going to give you a little bit of that insight on here. And this is a part of our case studies program that we had for the last 2 falls virtually. If you want to be a part of the next case study program and go over more information, please email me and I will definitely keep you in mind when we send out invitations for our next case study program. So with that, I'm going to go jump right in. So at UC Berkeley, we read applications in the context of the school environment. So for example, as a San Diego territory manager, when I'm reading applications, I'm going to read 20 applications from San Ysidro High School and then pivot to 20 applications from Torrey Pines and stuff like that, just so I can get a feel for the student's environment just by reading their peers. So it does make it a little easier to understand the school environment by reading applications from the same school, one right after another. So for example, for the purpose of this study, I'm reading Town High School in Fresno, California. So you can see some of the information on here. We'll see if the school is LCFF, if they're a SAPEP school, AP or IB courses offered, number of honors classes offered, percentage of AP tests taken that receive a 3 or higher, so a credit-bearing score, average family income from the school, and more information around the school demographics. So we get a lot of information about the school environment before we even go into the individual applicant. So next we have the academic profile, which will show the student's intended major. So for this example, we have an undeclared engineering student, and we'll have the student data, which shows their unweighted and weighted GPAs, the A through G courses taken, honors, AP, IB, or college level classes taken in 10th and 11th grade, and then also their senior year, 12th grade, so you can see there. And now you can see there's still the SAT and ACT information on here, which is irrelevant now that we are test free. So this, if students send an SAT or ACT exam, they're not even going to appear on this. This is from the last year that we included that information on there. So this part of the application is irrelevant now. And then we'll see the high school averages, including the average GPA of students applying from Town High School for both weighted, unweighted, and additional information on there as well, whether they are EOP or ELC. So educational opportunity program if they've applied, or in their eligibility in local context. So the top 9% of their California high school. So next we'll see the student profile. We'll see if the student attended high school outside of the United States at all. We'll see the first languages spoken at home. So you can see this applicant speaks English and Spanish. And then the guardian information regarding their education level, current occupation, as well as guardian income as well. And then if there's any gaps in education, so maybe if a student is applying after they've already graduated from high school and they took a gap year, they'll put that information in there so we can take it into consideration, and it'll show why we have final grades for 12th grade when most students, those 12th grade grades are in progress or planned by the time we read their application. So then pivoting to schools attended, we can see the student attended Town High School in Fresno, and they've also taken some classes at Cal State Fresno. And then moving forward, again, the only exam information now that we will see SAT subject exams if the student took them, or any AP or IB exam as well. ACT or SAT information will not be on there anymore. So even if they send it, it'll have no impact on their admission decision because we won't even see it when we're doing our reading. And then we go right into our self-reported transcript, which is where we see the student self-reported academic record in according to what A through G subject the course fits under. So you can see the A requirement for their 9th grade, they took world history, they got 2 A's, they took English 2 honors, sophomore as well for the B requirement, and so on. So then we'll go through and we can see sophomore year, they increased the rigor by taking 2 Fresno State classes. And then junior year, we can see strong academic record, mostly A's, some B's, with some higher level courses taken, Fresno State as well. And then again, if you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to use the chat function, and I'll be happy to answer those as we go through. And then we can see their senior year, some classes have been reported as A's, but most classes are still in progress or planned, with Cal State Fresno in there as well. Then there's the box that'll show if the student's taken any A through G coursework in 7th and 8th grade. So you can see the student took Algebra 1 in 7th or 8th grade, so you put it there. Most common we'll see would be math classes such as Algebra 1, Geometry, sometimes Algebra 2. And then a lot of students will report their language other than English classes is there as well, if they've taken Spanish 1 or French 1 or ASL 1 during middle school prior to starting high school. And then there's also the option to add any non-A through G coursework that they'd like for us to consider on the application as well. So the student decided to put in their body conditioning PE class and explain what the class was. So then moving forward, we have the extracurricular section. So now, before there was a limit to how many honors awards and employment opportunities and volunteer experiences to submit in the application. Now it's just, you have 20 spots and you can submit 19 awards and 1 volunteer experience, or 5 of each category, whatever the student would like to highlight in their application. So for this, the honors and awards section, the student included the superintendent's honor roll, National Honor Society, the Prep Regional Math Relays Competition Award. And their extracurricular activities, they'll report their student council, yearbook. You can see their student was also a volunteer at Artsapalooza and Community Blood Center. And it shows level, so that's the year that the student was involved in this activity. So we can see student council organization, for example. They've been involved with it for the last 3 years of high school, 6 hours a week, 25 weeks out of the year. So we're not calculating by hand like, oh, this math doesn't add up. We just want students to report this to the best of their ability. So students shouldn't panic if they're trying to calculate whether it was 4 hours a week or 5 hours a week, as long as it's generally in the same area, then it's fine. And then social programs and participation. Student talks about CSUF Health Start program, a pipeline program through Cal State Fresno as well, and the Yale Young Global Scholars ATC. So just some examples of the programs the students been involved in, and you can see each program participation area has areas for the student to elaborate on what the activity was. And in this section, we really want students to use a lot of I statements and give us the nitty-gritty details of what went into being selected for the special program participation, or if they got an award, what were the metrics for the award, if they were said best student in Bakersfield, they shouldn't just say like, I was awarded this May 2021. They should explain what the criteria was to be named the best student in Bakersfield. How many students were nominated? Was there a application process? What did you have to do to get that award? Did it come with a prize and stuff like that? So the more information we have, the better. All right, and then moving on, this next section is the employment section, where the student talks about being a server assistant, teacher's aide, customer service rep and cashier, and a front of house food runner as well as an explanation of what they use their earnings for. So you can see this student, half their income goes to a savings account, 30% goes to helping their parents out financially, and another 20% is for their own personal spending. And then we'll go right into the PIQs. So you can see the personal insight question 1, they decided to answer it with the creative studies or the creative prompt where every person has a creative side and can be expressed in many ways. Describe how you express your creative side. So go to that one. And then the student answered the greatest skill or talent question, how they've taken advantage of significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier they have faced. And then finally, the student answered the most significant challenge they have faced. So and this is the last part of the application. Students can provide comments, additional comments regarding their academic history. So the student talks about Town High School is a small school with 150 students and very limited academic opportunities. With no AP or IB classes to offer, I've taken or I'm still in the process of taking every college credit class I can. So this is a great example of the student advocating for themselves in the academic history section, where they're letting us know that they go to a very small school and the academic opportunities are pretty limited to what they have. So they're going out into the community, their local CSU, to take additional college classes to challenge themselves. So that really emphasizes or shows off the students' love of learning. They're driven to take as much as they can for what's available to them. And they're going above and beyond what's available at their high school and looking out into the local community to get more support and increase their academic rigor. And then the additional comments section, the student talks about their personal life, talking about their father and their mother, and just providing more context to the application. So that's what we see. As you can see, there's no rubric. This is really how we read the applications. So we'll take all of this into consideration. We'll read the PIQs, look at the extracurricular section, and we'll see the grades all together again with their GPA, what classes they took, what classes they could have taken, all of that stuff. And then we give our recommendation. So it really is holistic. There's no rubric. We just take it all into consideration before we give our recommendation. And each application is read at least twice. So this is a great example of a student who's really utilized a lot of the parts of the application to advocate for themselves, including the academic comments here, the additional comments further explaining their own personal experience as a first-generation Hispanic queer student. So a lot of great context in here for this applicant. So another thing that can be, another part of the process that can help students add additional information would be the letters of recommendation portion. And I'm going to quickly pivot to that. Actually, do we have any questions regarding this part of like the application review before we go into the letters of recommendation section? And if you have the ability to unmute yourself, please do. Otherwise,
feel free either way to unmute or put on the chat, everybody.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I'll let you know if there's any questions that come up, Alberto.
Sounds good.
How impactful is it when the students self-report their senior year, they are in either planned to take something second semester their senior year, and then there's a change. So for example, a student is taking AP stats their senior year, they passed fall, but spring they are drowning. A lot of other issues came up and now they can't handle AP stats. Is it advisable for them to drop the class, to stick through it even though they might still get an F? How is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as frustrating it is, the answer is it depends. So it depends on like what the class is. So for example, if it's their let's stick with the AP stats example. If this is their fourth year of math and they've already done the 3 years that's required for UC eligibility, the A through G, if this is an extra one and they decide to drop it, that's fine. We would much rather see a withdrawal than a D or F in their final year. If this was their last English class and they need this to be eligible for the University of California for their A through G requirements, then it can be more of an issue of maybe pivot to, if it's AP or honors, maybe go to the college prep level. If they do get D or an F during that like second semester of senior year and they've been admitted to UC Berkeley, it will go to our admissions review committee. where they will be given a chance to provide additional context. So say they submit an update form saying, I got an F in English 12 from Town High School during the second semester of senior year. Then we'll let them know saying, we'll send them an email saying your file is going to be going to our admissions review committee to be discussed. Please respond with any information that can help provide context for what happened. So in the past, we've had students include letters from their counselors, medical records if it was a health issue, something like that. So just provide as much information and context as possible. And then from there, the student can be sustained and just be like, okay, it's fine, you're good to go as it is. They may be conditionally sustained where they'll have to take a summer class before they start at UC Berkeley, or they may be canceled, which is the worst case scenario. But we do work with students and we want to make sure that they give us every opportunity to advocate for themselves and provide context of what happened. And usually if they've been admitted to Berkeley, typically they have a very strong academic record up until this point. So maybe something significant did happen during their sophomore or their second semester of senior year that caused them to have such a drop in their academic performance. So it depends. If it's not needed to meet A through G requirement though, we are much more lenient towards that. So maybe it's their sixth G elective class that they don't need to be eligible, then for the most part, it shouldn't be an issue if they drop it. What can be an issue is if they do get a D or an F in any class during their senior year. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does answer my question. Another follow-up question is going back, because I'm talking about specific situations here. For the AP Stats class, it is the fourth year of math, so they don't technically need it because they already met the third year requirement. Is there a form that they still need to submit to let admissions know that there is going to be a change in regards to what was self-reported to the transcript that they're going to be getting at the end?
That form will only be available once the student's been admitted. So until the admission decision's been released, they don't need to do anything. They just wait for our decision. If they've been admitted, there will be an update form on their admissions portal where their decision's been posted, and they'll explain. And then there's it's a form, so you can put like, I've dropped a class, I received a D or an F in a class, and all that stuff. And then they'll provide information, and then we'll go from there. So the update form will be available once they're admitted. So that's when they can let us know of any changes. And usually if a student changes a class of like, oh, instead of taking AP Stats, I took AP Calculus, that's not a major issue.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And Alberto, if I may add to that, hi everybody. I work with Alberto and Marissa. My name is Dean. Also work at Berkeley. Something that isn't asked upon the students when there's updates on second semester grades is for the letters of support, the medical records. We don't per se ask for that. So that's why it's really important for the student to ensure that they're giving context, as Alberto was mentioning, to those grades. Anything and everything, medical records, doctor notes, a letter from counselors, from teachers, all of that really helps us not have to play guessing games when we're reading applications, right? Readers are reading hundreds of applications, and it's, we have to work with what we're given. And if we're not given additional comments, additional context to certain like dips in trends in grades, for example, in this case, it's really tough on us to have to think, okay, I'm imagining something happened because they were getting straight A's, a B or two here, and then an F grade. But if there's no additional comments, no letter of support, it's really tough on us readers to have to, play these guessing games. Like maybe something occurred, and we have to work with what we're given. So I just wanted to add that there.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. That's great, and we're that is a great segue into this next portion of the session, which is the letters of recommendation for UC Berkeley. So one of the as I said earlier, holistic review. The second bullet point, another frustrating thing to say, there's no single attribute or characteristic that'll guarantee admission to of any applicant to UC Berkeley. So Avery, again, it's that answer of it depends. So it's really, when we review applications, it's in the context of the student's environment. And through a holistic review, we're able to get to know the student a lot more than, say, a comprehensive review as we used to do in the far past. So context matters again, academic improvement, the school and home environment, first generation college student, or special program participation as well. And it's not just enough to say, I'm a first generation college student and then never go back to it, or like I'm in Puente and then never elaborate on it. The context we're looking for is for the student to talk about what impact has being in Puente made on their academic journey or their decision to apply to a certain program or something like that. So as long as it's giving more we're looking for more context and more information. It's not just enough to just say, I'm first generation and never go back to it. Students should elaborate about what are some of the challenges of what it's like to be a first generation college student navigating the higher education application system, or something more along those lines, more than just saying that and then not elaborating on it further. So why does UC Berkeley request letters of recommendation? So we use letters of recommendation through the UC policy for augmented review. You can see a quote there from the UC policy. Augmented review process is designed to provide additional review for a select pool of applicants who fall in the margins of admission, but whose initial application yields an incomplete picture of their qualifications or presents extraordinary circumstances that invite further comment. So since fall 2015, Berkeley has been inviting students to submit 2 letters of recommendation. So this is the way UC Berkeley uses augmented review. Before Berkeley, I used to work for UC Davis, and the UC Davis augmented review, instead of sending or requesting letters of recommendation, they would send a survey out to students that they could fill out themselves. Like the letters of recommendation, if they didn't submit it, it had no negative impact on the application. It was just an opportunity for the student to give us additional information. So what are we looking for in these letters of recommendation? So we're asking you as the potential writers of these letters to consider some of the following things when you're writing this for a specific student. So academic performance and potential of the individual applicant, both overall and in the context of the applicant's high school class. Maybe you're their English teacher, so maybe specifically in their English class. The student's love of learning, leadership that you may have witnessed from the student, whether that's in the school environment, maybe you know of the family responsibilities they have, maybe they're the eldest sibling and they have to go home right after school every day to take care of their younger siblings, or caregivers for a family member, for example. And then maybe they're a leader in their community, whether that's Desert Mirage High School community, the LGBTQIA community, the undocumented student community, whatever their students' community is. If you've witnessed the student persist in the face of challenges, definitely let us know of that. Examples of cross-cultural engagement, or originality and creativity you may have seen from the student, and then the students demonstrated concern for others as well. So these are really the main things that we're looking for when we're looking at these letters of recommendation. And when we read a letter of recommendation, it'll be the very last tab of the application. So it'll be after the additional comment section, as you saw in the previous presentation. There'll just be another tab for letters of recommendation. So if a student is offered the opportunity to submit these letters of recommendation, they must be submitted electronically. The students don't need to email them directly to us via, don't send it to me directly at my Berkeley email. It needs to go through our portal, and the deadline to submit those letters of recommendation is always January 15th. So that's the same every year. So some frequently asked questions about these. If a student is not selected to submit a letter of recommendation, can they still submit them? No, unfortunately. The letters of recommendation can only be submitted through invitation only, and it is through that specific link. Are these letters required? Not at all. It will not impact their application negatively if they don't submit them, or if their if the recommender doesn't submit it on time. It's not going to have any negative impact on the application and their students' chances of admission to Berkeley. We just highly encourage students to take advantage of this unique opportunity to further advocate for themselves. And who should write the letter? So one letter should be written by an academic teacher or instructor. And then the other letter can be from anyone that knows the student really well. So that could be a second teacher, a counselor, maybe their coach, employer, community member, somebody that knows the student specifically and can provide specific anecdotes and context about the specific applicant. So it's not just a family friend who knows the family really well. We want somebody who knows the student really well. So the letters of recommendation, students will receive an email saying you've been selected to submit letters of recommendation. And typically these get sent out the first week of December. So I know sometimes they can get lost in the shuffle of a busy inbox when they're setting up portals for all the UCs that they applied to. Maybe they've applied to other colleges that are asking for information as well. So it's typically in the first week of December. And then this is just another reminder to tell your students to check their junk or spam folders, because sometimes they may get routed there as well. But typically you get at least, or students have at least a month or like 5 weeks or so before January 15th to submit these letters of recommendation. So once they get the email saying you've been selected to submit letters of recommendation, there's a request form where they will put in, for example, they're gonna request a letter from Steve. So they'll Mr. Gonzalez, teacher at Berkeley High School, and this is their email address. And then it will get sent directly to Mr. Gonzalez to fill out the letter of recommendation. So some more advice for writing letters, and I'm also gonna stay on these next slides for a while in case you want to take a picture or something. If not, hopefully we can share these slides later because there's a lot on this slide, a lot of helpful information on the slides, but we know it can be overwhelming. So we're just looking to understand who the human being is behind the numbers. So we want to know everything with the person behind the applicant, because we know they're more than just their GPA counts and how many honors classes they've taken and stuff like that. So we're looking to try to personalize the letter as much as possible. And we know that can be a big ask because this is just another thing that we're asking for you to provide. So just be as candid and honest as possible and avoid vague and general statements without any concrete examples relating to the specific student and their ability, their intellectual curiosity and stuff like that. And it's totally okay if it's brief. It doesn't need to be a long 2-page essay. It can just be, so like, for example, in this first bullet point, if you know the student, but due to workload constraints can only provide a brief summary, let us know. Bullet points are totally fine if you just want to get straight to the point about why this is what the student is like in the classroom, what I think they'll contribute to the Berkeley environment, and there's some more personal examples. And it can be very direct. It doesn't need to be the whole 2-page essay. You don't need to write your own personal essay question, is what I'm saying. So some more things to consider. Has the student demonstrated a willingness to take intellectual risks and go beyond the normal classroom experience? What motivates and excites the student? How does the student interact with teachers, peers? If possible, describe the applicant's personality and social skills. How does the student react to setbacks, failure, or disappointments? And then are there any unusual personal, family, or community circumstances of which we should be aware of? And I think this is what's really great about the letter of recommendation approach to augmented review, is that a lot of students we find don't advocate for themselves enough. Maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing some information that would make a big difference and provide more context to their application. So by reaching out to people who can write letters of recommendation on their behalf, we find a lot more information, maybe their struggles at home or challenges at home, maybe more information about the specific school environment, all those kinds of things can be very helpful when reading the application. And a lot of the time it does add a lot of context to the application that the student may not have shared in the original application. And we wouldn't have known that had they not submitted a letter of recommendation. So some other helpful prompts, if you're familiar with Berkeley specifically, let us know how and why you feel the student would be a good fit for a community. Maybe you're a Berkeley alum, maybe you know somebody who went to Berkeley and you like the campus and you think it would be a great fit for the student. Let us know. Another fun one, if a student is absent, how is the class different or school different that day? How do you think their peers would describe the student? What has surprised you about the student as well? So with that, I can see my colleagues, Marissa and Dean, have been leaving some really great information in the chat as well. So again, opening it up to any questions you all may have regarding our process for a freshman review. So feel free to unmute yourselves or use the chat function to ask any questions you have. And then I'm also going to put my email address in here. And just one more time, if you have any specific questions and would like to reach out.
You know, Dean, I mean, I'm sorry. Of course, right when I'm talking, a big group of kids come by. I know one thing that the counselor has asked about these letters of recommendation is do they serve a purpose? Is it worth, writing? Why? I think you answered all those questions, but I just want to make sure that if the counselors have any questions about that letter of recommendation, to please ask. Our Poderoso team is such an excellent resource for this.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I as a reader, I get sad when they get asked for a letter of rec and it's blank. There's no submission. I get personally all of our letters of rec, or all the students that get asked for a letter of rec are typically students coming from non-traditional backgrounds, right? Low income, first generation, sometimes first in their family to go to high school, right? It is not by coincidence that we asked our community members coming from non-traditional backgrounds for letters of rec, and by extension, as Marissa put in the chat, right? Oftentimes those letters of rec can give so much more context in the application itself. And whenever Alberto, myself, Marissa, we could see it if they got asked for a letter of rec, and then we could see it if there was nothing submitted. And that stings. It definitely does add a ton of value to our admission decisions. The letters of rec, especially when there's two. Oh, I mean, I've seen it flip decisions, just like that, depending on how thorough those letters of recs are. So a ton of value. I don't know if Alberto and Marissa want to add to this, or if there's any questions.
Yeah, I'll just say, oh, go for it. Go with your question first.
I just had a question. I don't know if it was addressed maybe earlier and I missed it, but how are students selected for letters of rec?
Yeah, so it's a small percentage of the pool. There's some metrics maybe regarding some first generation students, specific school sites potentially. It does change every year, and it's not that like a blanket statement of like all first generation students are get requested letter of recommendation. The metrics do change every over the years, but I know a large percentage of Puente applicants get asked for letters every year. So I believe this last application cycle, correct me if I'm wrong, Poderoso team, but over 70% of the Puentistas who applied this last year were invited to submit a letter of recommendation. And again, the augmented review is, as I'll show at the beginning, the UCOP specific policy, and I can provide a link to it as well. Just that the augmented review process is designed to provide additional review for students whose initial application yields an incomplete picture of their qualifications or presents extraordinary circumstances that invite further comment.
Great. I think the message is, loud and clear of that importance of that. Anything else from the counselors?
I have a question. Hi, Alberto. This is Danny from Pittsburgh High School. So out of these Puente applicants that get the letter of recommendation request, do you have any data on the ones that are getting accepted into Cal from these letter of recommendation requests?
I don't have the specific information on here. I don't know if Mia is on here. I know she may have that information. If not, I can get the information and provide it with Steve, and then hopefully he'll be able to share this out. It would be historic since it wouldn't be this current application cycle just because those decisions haven't been made yet. But maybe in the last 3-year grade trend, we may be able to provide some of that information on there to show the impact of letters of recommendation. And again, just because a student is invited to submit them, for somebody maybe they didn't share it with their recommenders, or the recommenders didn't get it on time. I'll see if I can find information about specific, if a student submitted a letter of recommendation versus whether or not the student was just requested.
I think that's an excellent question, Danny. And we meet tomorrow. So let's try to remember that, Dean, yeah? Or not Dean, Alberto, or Dean, everybody.
everybody here. Yeah.
Yes.
Another
so-
another problem that comes up, right, Danny, is that students don't even see the email, or they miss the email that asked for letter of rec. So that's another thing Marissa and I are going to talk about at this later half of today. Someone else had a question, I think.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing up the fact that maybe the format is not as important as the context, as the information that you're going to be
Right.
providing in the letters of recommendation. Because sometimes I have to write a lot of letters of recommendation, and it's hard to kind of think, okay, how can I start this one uniquely than the other one? And so that's some things where I get stuck. But if I can, knowing that I won't be judged if I just kind of do bullets and explain as much as I can that way, will be just as well received as a to whom it may concern, and
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
letter. So.
Yeah, and if anything, I would say brevity would be beneficial, just because we're reading so many applications. If we have somebody who gets straight to the point, that makes our job so much easier. So bullet points, completely fine. You don't need to do the to whom it may concern, look up our address, all that stuff. It's okay. Just open up your Google Doc and jump right in.
I second that.
Noted.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
actually the best letter of rec I read was like a stream of consciousness, somebody just doing a journal entry on a student. And that gave me so much context, and it was, seemingly informal, but way better than some of the other, until someone is doing like copy and paste for multiple students. And just because we read so many of those applications and letters of recommendations, it's very clear to see.
Thank you. Did you read that chat from Lulu?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We do provide additional, like a website link with the email saying like, this is what we're looking for. And we ask students to share that information with the students. But we understand it's already an overwhelming process for your students, and it can just get lost in the shuffle. So hopefully by providing this information now, like if you're a appointed teacher and counselor, there's a high chance your students will be requested a letter of recommendation if they apply to Berkeley. So maybe the first week of December, start asking, hey, just be on lookout. Berkeley does request letters of recommendation, so you may get one.
By the way, Alberto and Poderoso team, I think those people asking the questions, knowing their voices, was Sandra Maldugon from Rancho San Juan, Danny Lee from Pittsburgh, and Maribel Dominguez from Marshall. So I think I got all the voices, and Lulu is from Magnolia High School.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick correction. It's Sandra from Everett Alvarez High School. It's Lorena Hales and Rancho. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Not a worry. We're not offended. We love each other, but just to clarify.
Thank you for correcting me. I had your voice. That's pretty good. So without further ado, we'll move to the. Go ahead, Alberto.
Oh, before I speak, I see Gisela.
I did have one quick question. Do you think that this is a trend that's going to be happening with more UCs? Is it something that we should start really hey, not just specific to Cal, but just, as our next class coming up?
I haven't heard of anything from other UCs mentioning if they would pivot towards a letter of recommendation. Augmented review's been since 2015. So I think if each UC decided how they were going to approach it. So for example, like Davis does the questionnaire specifically to the student. So I don't imagine that if the other UCs have been doing it since 2015 that they won't start now, but that'll depend on the individual UC campus, and I can only speak on behalf of Berkeley.
I just want to say that I've noticed that students that have applied to the UCLA nursing program, they asked us for a letter of recommendation. I've seen that.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you for sharing. So
that was Danny Lee from Pittsburgh and Gisela from Castro Valley, right? Gisela, did I get that right?
There you go. And then before I pivot to my wonderful colleagues, I just want to say, if you have any questions, even though I may not be your specific territory manager, please feel free to email me and I'll connect you with the right person or answer the question myself. So it was great working with all of you, and I look forward to working with you moving forward.
Thank you, Alberto. So we're gonna pivot over to Dean and Marissa from the Poderoso team. We have about, we're running a little bit over, but that's okay. 25 minutes. And I think I could do mine pretty quickly, or quicker.
We'll
Right,
speed round
thank
it,
you.
Steve. We'll speed round it.
That's all
All
right.
good.
That's all right. Do whatever you need to do. Your is better, more important. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Alberto. I'll start off and I'll pass it over to Marissa. Great to see some familiar faces, John and a few others. We're just going to talk briefly about, summer transitions, which is a key piece to a lot of factors come time in the fall when school starts. And we're going to, I love the conversations we had, and the person who put in the chat, something that we deem so important for students to do is to we like to break it down real simple. Make sure that they have their email app on their phone. That means of communicating, whether it be asking for a letter of rec, notifications about housing, scholarships, so important that students download the email phone on their app, the email application on their phone, and then turn on the push notifications. It's so I run a class at Berkeley, and something that we always talk about is the minute students get into Berkeley, and for several other I believe we're going to send it out to Steve to send it out to y'all. I just put in the chat, I'm going to use Berkeley as an example, right? Every student that gets into Berkeley gets an email in their inbox of their personal email account worth, there's one email that's worth $2,000. Every student who gets in applies, can apply, is eligible to apply. And then there's another email they get that's worth about 4 years, upward to like $30,000-$40,000 in addition to the financial aid they get, right? And I'm just using Berkeley as an example because that's where we're coming from, but every student that gets in gets that email to apply. But if they're not checking their email, if they're not having the notifications on, they're going to miss the scholarships available to them. They're going to miss the asking for the letter of rec. So important. In addition to not just Berkeley, right? Typically they get asked to make accounts and portals for the respective universities that they applied to. So important that they check their spam folder, check their email religiously, right? And we even go a step further, like make sure they're with the students I'm working with at the high school, and I work in West County, some of the high schools there, but also the college program at Berkeley, is to like make sure that email app is like on the, Gmail app is on the very front part of their phone screen. I would take it a step further, right? Just make sure that they are constantly checking their email, because in addition to scholarships, letters of rec asking, there's going to be orientation information, right? Pre-housing information. There's also a lot of pre-college programming that occurs during the summer. And sometimes it's a matter of just clicking enroll for them to get a chance to get free housing or an opportunity to take some college classes before stepping foot on campus in the fall. And of course enrollment, right? It's no longer the pen and paper method. You have to do it online, right? Something that we want to touch up on also is basic needs to-do list, right? Housing, so important to start that conversation with the students about how to get their housing set up, upon whichever institution, university, college that they go to, whether it's on campus, off campus. Typically, and I'm going to speak on behalf of some of Berkeley, where that you might not get offered the best or the most affordable housing right off the bat. You might have to advocate, you might have to check your emails and make sure that there's other, you're not missing emails in the spam folder that offer cheaper housing, right? In addition to that, I'm gonna try to move as quickly as possible. Roommates, right? There's surveys that get sent out for roommate matching up of sorts. So important. There's also opportunities for them to pre-select, hey, I come from a background where I cannot live in the same space as too many people, or I have PTSD and I can't sleep, I get re-traumatized and re-triggered based on who I'm around. I need a single room accommodations. Certain institutions can make accommodations if you state your case and let it be known that, hey, look, I'm coming to the table from a different background. I need further support. Thank you, Marissa. Meal plan, CalFresh, right? Another layering to the basic needs. Most every, well, I'm gonna speak for Berkeley, right? Berkeley has folks who will sit down, they pay workers to sit down and help students sign up for CalFresh. So they don't have to deal with the bureaucracy to make sure that they get enough food in front of them, 3 meals a day for the entire academic semester and the summer. Something that doesn't get talked about enough is what happens during the winter and the spring break sessions when oftentimes dining halls close, right? And it's a shame that some institutions do this, because it really does push our most vulnerable students to the margins even further when it comes to just being a student and being on campus and having the basic needs met. So important. So that's another thing to be, we can't dice this up based on every school that they apply to, but that's something to sort of to nudge your students to be like, hey, look, make sure you have your winter break, spring break covered. Make sure you have the meal plan signed up. Make sure you sign up to make sure that you don't have, a crazy roommate situation, right? That's the last thing you want, is to have in addition to the rigor of places like higher education, to have a bad roommate. That's what we don't want. And then of course, transportation. Some Berkeley, for example, for all EOP students, they're eligible to get free rentals for the e-bikes if they qualify for EOP, right? They're low income, first generation, historically underrepresented on colleges and institutions, universities. They qualify to get a free electric bike through the city of Berkeley. There's a good chance that, and every other UC, I think, has a EOP program. I think Marissa's going to touch up on that in a bit. Right, bus passes. Every student at Berkeley, they get AC Transit bus pass, so they could pretty much get free bus rides wherever, even to San Francisco and back. So that's another thing that students want to keep in mind, is like, how am I going to get to and from my dormitory to my campus, my off-campus housing to my campus, right? There's oftentimes a lot of free resources that not a lot of students know about. So just kind of nudging them and making sure that they're taking advantage of all the free resources, the free food on campus, because sometimes, dining halls close and then students are forced to get creative with how to get that next meal, right? Marissa, I think I didn't give you too much time, but I'm gonna pass it to you. Feel free to hit the chat, or if you have any questions, we're gonna send the slides out too. And with that said, I'm gonna pass it to Marissa.
That's okay.
All right.
Dean and Marissa, take your time. Take your time.
Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? I keep getting the message that the connection's unstable. Not so much.
So good.
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll roll through it. I'm gonna keep my camera off just in case. All right, so now we're gonna talk about your financial to-do list. So things that you need to be reminding your students if they don't already have a checking account. That's something really important and vital that they're going to need. So a college checkings and savings account, super important. Most of the times, if you go to like one of the bigger banks like Chase or Bank of America, they have a specific one for college students, and it's not going to charge you any extra fees. So a typical checkings account, there may be like some requirements when you're opening up the account. You may have to do a certain number of direct deposits a month to avoid fees. With the college ones, there's no fees, and it's a really great option. So if they're able to, encourage them to start thinking of opening up a bank account, and then thinking also if they're going for like a credit union, are those credit unions going to be in the areas where the student is going to go to school? So I'll speak personally. I have a credit union from a very small branch. When I went away to college, and my branch wasn't in my where I was learning. And so it made it really difficult for me to find other credit unions to make my rent payments and things like that. So things to consider to avoid any headaches. And then you're gonna also wanna encourage your students to search and apply for scholarships. And remember to let them know that they should never be paying for a scholarship. So there's no startup fee to apply for a scholarship. Don't get sucked into any of those scams. Make sure that you're going with legitimate sites, not any sites that work off of a point-based system to find and apply for scholarships, because there's plenty of those scam sites out there. So make sure that students are aware that unfortunately there are fraudulent sites and they need to be using a critical eye when they're applying and searching for scholarships. And then lastly, make sure that students are aware that they're going to need to bring documents potentially to the university that they're going to. So if they are thinking about getting an on-campus job or even an off-campus job, they may be required to bring documents to show that they're eligible to work and to fill out those hiring forms. I used to employ a lot of student workers, and that was the #1 hurdle that I ran into. I would hire first-year students, I'd send them all the HR paperwork, and they'd be like, oh, I didn't bring my social, I didn't bring my resident card, so it's going to take me longer to get that information from home, and then it takes longer for them to start working. So things that they need to keep in mind, and then also getting paperwork together for accommodations, specifically for like disability services. So if they need extra time, if they have diagnoses, bring those things so that it'll be a smooth transition onto campus. Go ahead, Dean, next slide. All right, and then Dean's also putting some scholarships in the chat too that would be really helpful for you all. So another thing to remind students about is once they figure out where they got accepted, where they want to go, they really want to be able to get connected on campus and to build their sense of belonging and their community. So start doing research with your students, looking at campus resources, identity centers. So does the campus have a multicultural center, a pride center, specific ethnic and racial centers that are going to be able to help support students in the transition to campus? Are there academic learning centers on campus? So is there an advising center? Is it split up by college? Is it, one hub? So all of those things are going to vary by campus. Also looking into, are there tutoring centers on campus? And then, as I mentioned before, disability services. So if you have a learning or physical disability, making sure that you're aware of where you can go to get additional services and accommodations, or even if you suspect you might have one, checking in with disability services to see if you can get a diagnosis and get some services. And then also, I'm seeing my connection's unstable again.
We can still hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so for students, specifically at Cal, this may be the first time that your students are going to have access to healthcare, right? And we have a wonderful health center on campus. So really making sure that your students are doing research to see what's available to them, especially for free. Sometimes these health centers may have special programs that students can enroll in and get some extra funds to get basic necessities like medicine. And all of these are free opportunities for our students. And then researching your library on the campus that you're going to. Libraries have so many untapped resources a lot of students aren't aware of. Most libraries have like a technology loan program, so you can rent a laptop for the whole semester or all 4 years that you're attending the university. And then EOP and basic needs centers. So most campuses have an EOP office on their campus, a huge team of folks. So we put together a list of the EOP offices on the UC campuses. Sometimes they're called something different, but essentially they're doing the same things and supporting the same communities. So when you open up the slides, you'll have the links for all of this, and you can share that with your students as well. And then on the next slide, we have the list for basic needs. So with these are basic needs centers at the UC campuses. At some universities, they'll call them a food pantry as well. But essentially, this is a group of folks who are going to be able to help students, whether it's finding housing or battling food insecurity. So these are really great options to get your students to start researching and seeing what's available for them on their campus. All right, and then lastly, we have our plug for our financial aid literacy presentation that's going to be happening next Thursday for our Poderoso sites. And then you can connect with Steve to get the Zoom link for that. And now Dean and I will take questions. I know we ran through that because of time.
That was perfect. I think we just have a perfect time for questions.
I
It's a
don't
good
have
group there.
I
Go
don't
ahead,
have
go
a
ahead, Gisela.
question, but I do have a comment. I really like the slides that you presented, because sometimes we forget about like the next steps. So I feel like you covered stuff that even I hadn't thought about. So thank you.
Well, Gisela, it was the counselor committees that came up with that idea, and yeah, you guys asking for it and asking for this whole day. I hope it's useful. So thank you, counselor committee and all those people that are on it, which we're going to introduce next. I get to meet with these people every Friday, and it's so fun. And the really good thing is that Dean is a Rams fan. That's just a beautiful thing.
I was just about to say, Steve, that your main goal is to convert everyone who is not a Rams fan to be a Rams fan.
Yeah, I'm working on Danny Lay. I'm working on it. All right. Any questions for our Poderoso team? Going once, going twice. Let's give them a Puente round of applause, like a reaction. And if we could go, a clap hand or whatever you guys do. Thank you so much. And Lupita, if we could go back to our presentation. Sandra, were you going to say something?
I was just clapping as a thank you.
I love your symbol. What does that mean?
It's the Chinese character for double happiness.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Poderoso team. Thank you so much. So we're going to end up, I think we're going to end up perfectly on time. Thank you so much. And I really want to thank the counselors for staying like for after and coming back. Our attendance is great. I'm kind of an attendance freak, because I really believe in what we're doing. And so I want, when I asked for like Cruzando attendance, because I really believed in like that presentation, and I want as many students to get the most out of it. And I think those people that saw that, and I believe in what we're doing now. So I really want to thank you for staying the afternoon. I know that's hard. So I'm going to start with Puente Counselor Committee introductions. So I'm going to start with Northern California, and where this counselor committee came from was one time it was Giselle asking me, what do you think the counselors need statewide? And I said, I don't know. It's differs from each community. So then we created all these 5 different regions, and these leaders that are asking, and they're next. So I'll let me introduce them. From the north, give it up to Danny Lee and Diego Gavino. Put them on. Let's spotlight them if they are theirs. Hopefully they could put on their cameras so we can spotlight them. We could all put them in one place. Okay. There's Danny Lay and Diego. Well, let's keep them all on. Diego, is he there? From the rural, for lack of a better word, from the rural committee, Monica Garcia and Lorena Hale. From the OC, Lacey Monger. Lacey, I should know that. Lacey Munger and Edith Prado.
I think I'm offended, Steve. It's Munger, but that's okay.
Oh my God,
After all those years of having to sit next to you,
oh, dang.
you owe me something.
I choked. From LA, Maribel Dominguez. Wendy's not here today. From the Inland Empire, Tomas Gomez and Robert Bareilles. So do we have all our people? Or just so I want to thank them all for serving as a Puente Counselor Committee. Our next meeting for the Counselor Committee is May 6th, right? So they're going to have a meeting from here to then, to once again get how you're feeling, and we'll come up with the agenda to hear what you're saying and what your needs are. This leads me to the next thing. We could take Danny off, unless she wants the spotlight. Danny, do you want the spotlight? Lupita, can you go back to the last slide? Thank you. So the second thing is our Puente Educator website. Lupita, if you could click on there. So if you click on there, you'll find, you have to create your own password, and we don't have it. So, and one thing, there was a request from the Puente Counselor Committee that all the things are all we need to do a better job of putting all the things in one site. And so looking at it, there's one place that everything is good in one site, recruitment and everything, but there's other site that isn't. So that's part of the work. Hold on one second. So that's one of the jobs that the Puente Counselor Committee is going to work on over the summer. And we are going to have a summer session. And remember, Counselor Committee, please give me those dates that you're not available. Puente English, the Puente English class. So they're going to update everybody that has Puente English now. They're going to update the sites, and using the ethnic studies to complement the ethnic studies. So none of those people have to do anything. The 26 schools that do have Puente English. So it says, if you go back to the slide really quick, please, it says it will need to be submitted, resubmitted. It won't need to be resubmitted. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Now, there are 26 sites that have Puente English, and I just checked yesterday. There are 10 sites that do not have Puente English. And my assistant right now is going to gently message you personally, of those. We're not going to call them out. Why would I do that? Okay, so it's going to gently tell you that you're one of the sites that doesn't have Puente English on your website. And even when I was talking to like a very experienced Puente counselor, they were telling me that they thought this person did it or that person did that. So part of the message is just to try to find out who that person is, at your district or at your school, and if there's any problems with that, to let me know. Do any of the counselors want to give advice on that, of trying to find that person to our 10 sites? Because it really gives an advantage to the students of having that Puente English. When the UCs see that, it's definite advantage. Any advice, anybody, or our counselors?
I just had a question. What do you mean don't have a Puente English? Like it's just called English 9 and it's not a Puente English 9? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that, but this is Veronica, right?
Right, yeah.
Yours does have, your district does have Puente.
What?
And it's just an advantage that when they put that they're in the Puente program, that the students are in the Puente program, that that when they see that Puente English, they make that connection. It's an advantage to them.
Oh, okay, no, I just needed just a clarification because I thought maybe you were referring to the Puente elective.
No, that's my next thing. That's my next thing, Veronica. That's my next point here. So any other questions about Puente English? and the benefit of having it on. There is a benefit to having it on, definitely.
Steve?
And like we said, I have 26 sites that have it. So I'll speak in the positive. Question.
Hi, it's Edith. I was just going to say for us, we did add it on recently, and it's been nice as we are reviewing transcripts that automatically they know like this is a Puente student. They don't have to go in and look because they see it on their transcript. So it's been kind of nice for us.
Thank you, Edith. Any other comments about Puente English? You know, it seems to be kind of a district-wide thing. If one school does it, then the rest of the schools seem to do it. But there was one district actually that I found that, oh, this school didn't have it, and this school didn't have it in that district, but in the third school had it. So I won't mention the district, but okay. Puente elective. This is what Veronica Morelos brought up, and this is kind of a complicated situation that there are some schools that use a Puente elective in 11th or 12th grade or in 12th grade or this or that. And it's so complicated that we want to almost have it as we're going to have it as a fall discussion. That's a fall workshop that we'll have. The advantages of having it. Should we have it? Should it be should it be a standard? Should it not be a standard? We don't know. I mean, I just think that's something that we need to have a full discussion about. Does anybody want to comment on that? And it came from the counselor committee. But it's such a big thing that we wanted to postpone it till the fall. Veronica, did you want to mention anything on that? Anybody? Okay. Or chat it or whatever.
I can talk about ours, Steve.
Go ahead, Johnny. This is Johnny from Desert Mirage. He's the counselor, coordinator, teacher, ethnic studies, everything.
Welcome, everyone. So for us at Desert Mirage High School, when we first began the program, we submitted for a course. So as we were starting to think about 4-year academic plans for our Puentistas, we knew for sure that we didn't want to put we wanted to do it collectively, like working with seniors throughout the college going process. And we didn't want to put all of the pressure on the counselor to carry that load. And we knew how difficult it would be to kind of chase down the students. So what we did was we created an A through G approved course. It's a G interdisciplinary course called Puente Senior Seminar. And every Puentista has that course. So it's an A through G approved course. It also, illustrates to the UCs, the private schools, and the Cal States that the students are in Puente because, it says Puente Senior Seminar. That's the course title as it's approved, and anybody can teach it. So it can be an English teacher. I'm an English teacher. It can be a history teacher or anybody else that you bring in your team. But it's a great place for us. Like I teach the course, so I get to work with every student prior to entering the course, and then also throughout the course of the year from every aspect of the college going process. So whether it's let's start our UC applications in August, or whether it's Cal States in October, early action, early for the private apps, we can do everything: housing, commitment, SIRs, all of it, orientation, registration, bringing in folks to do everything you can think of. So I think it's a really good opportunity. But for us, it was important that it was an A through G approved course. So we didn't want it to just be an elective course. We wanted it to be an A through G approved course. And that's it.
You're muted, Steve.
I know. Darn, my first non-mute. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you so much. Boy, if you get a chance to go out to Desert Mirage, which is a long ride, and just see that excellence of the program, it's just outstanding. And we are working towards getting a counselor out there, right, Johnny?
Yeah, we're working on that. Hopefully, hopefully soon.
And they're expanding to another school out there. I forgot the name of it.
That's Coachella Valley High School.
Thank you, John. Any other comments about Puente elective? Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask something, Steve, probably the opposite of what Johnny's saying, but hi everyone, I'm Lupe from Tennyson High School. Just started like 2 weeks ago, but I've worked with Puente in the past. So I actually created that course too with our Puente team years ago. And it was helpful, especially if your high school offered a lot of 0 period options, right? Because a lot of our students, a lot of the AP classes were offered 0 period. So it allowed for us to offer it 6 period, the elective. And it did help, and it was A through G and all that great stuff. But now that I'm at a different site, I'm seeing that it is hurting our students in terms of credit recovery. Our graduation rate, unfortunately, is in the 60s. And so, I mean, we just have a different challenge on our end on how we're going to have to start working with our juniors and seniors, because we're seeing that it's actually hurting our students now too. So I wish as a program we had English all 4 years, or maybe even create like a Puente AP English for junior and seniors, or some sort of it, just because it's looking like now that our graduation requirements are there's more requirements coming in for graduation. And so it's getting difficult now to try to cohort the students, but also make sure that they're on track for graduation. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. I know that as a program, we still need to discuss this on what's going to be best for our students.
Thank you, Lupe. And you know, I wasn't 100% sure of Lupe because she had some other things. So we want to welcome back Lupe. And I guess I won't even try to have her spotlight right now, but welcome back to Puente. She's working at Tennyson, and she was with us for a number of years, so it's great to have her back. All right, thank you. Anything more? If you want to put on Puente elective, please put on the chat. The next thing is Summer Melt, and what Summer Melt is you know, we named it that because of the concern that we were having with students not, you know, they'd be accepted to a university and somehow something happened over the summer that they didn't go. So this is the statewide team calling almost all the students in connection with the community college program of calling all the students that where they said they were going to go, and trying to make sure that they're going to end up, and if they need any support. So it's support all the work that you've done, and to make sure that that has not gone by the wayside. So this year we're going to do something a little different. We're going to have a launch. I want to see it. That would be great to have it, of all the seniors, and launch our Summer Melt program. But that is it, just to let you know, we want to try to continue that, and just make sure there is as limited Summer Melt as possible. Any questions or comments about Summer Melt? Thank you. So one more question I have on the chat. If you could personalize it to me, where you are, where your site is in regards to Puente recruitment, where your site is in Puente. I forgot to put regards. Oh my gosh. Please chat to me where your site is in regards to Puente recruitment. Are you finished? Which I know, believe it or not, there's some sites. Blank estimated % complete or other. And please, you know, explain where you're at on the other. And do you need support? I know I'm definitely helping, you know, one site, and I've helped with up north with Logan, and I'm helping down with another. So I'm more than willing to help. So please, everybody, chat where you're at. Chat where you're at. Oh, I should have put that. If you need any support, please let me know. Thank you for doing that. Just, we're reporting it to everybody. All right, the proud one. So you could just do it to me if you feel that's okay. But I'd really like to know where everybody's at. I think Logan's pretty good, Marie Cruz, because they stayed on top of it. So please let me know if you need any support. Boy, we're gonna finish on time. I'm so happy. And I really, once again, 100%. There's always got to be. Oh my gosh! Wow, wonderful. Wow, you guys are. How do you? Never mind. You're amazing. Amazing group. All the stuff that's been put on you. So, thank you. Once again, if you need support, let me know. Yeah, 100% support people are wow. Oh, okay. Wow, you do need support, but I'll be there if you need help. Just let me know. I lost my train of thought. So I hope that we will be live in the fall. Let's all hope that we will once again. It's like three years since we were supposed to meet at UC Riverside, and me and Ade had to call people saying, don't come. It was so sad, but we're hopefully going to be together, so next fall. That'll be nice to see you all. But I feel good about, reaching out to you guys, and if you need to reach out to me more, just let me know, and let me know how I could be the best service to you. Next slide, Lupita. Any questions? Anything that you guys want to know as a bigger thing, either putting it on the chat or asking me out loud? Anything that you would like from us? You can put on the chat to me. We're saving this chat. Or anything you want to say out loud. I want to give a shout out to Lupita for being our let's give a thumbs up of applause for Lupita for her technological expertise. So thank you so much to Lupita for that. Lupita, you should spotlight yourself. Thank you, Lupita. Lupita, were you a Puente student? Yes, question.
I just want to say that I feel very supported by you whenever I send, it's Nancy Gonzalez. Whenever I send a question, you respond right away. Sometimes I'm just like up in the air about, oh my gosh, what is this? Did I forget to do something? And you're always right there, and you never make me feel stupid, and you're always very supportive. So thank you.
That's so nice. Thank you for saying that, Nancy. And Lupita was from Everett Alvarez. I didn't know that. All right, Lupita, giving back. Thank you so much.
Yes, Everett Alvarez, class of 2016.
All right. Wow. All right. Last slide. And this is our evaluation. That is, of course, me and Sam were having trouble with this yesterday, the QR code. We kind of messed up a little bit, but Lupita's also going to put in the chat for you non-QR coders, which I'm getting better, but not quite there. So she'll put it on the chat, and we really want to hear from you of how this day went. And once again, we're going to and thank you once again all for attending. It was a great attendance today. And I know that you are all so busy, and hopefully you felt supported by us, and got some of the mental health stuff that you got, but also got some key information that'll help you with your academic counseling. That's, continues to be important.